starting today, let's talk about foreign aid. So I'm delighted to be joined by John O'Connell, who is the Chief Executive of the Taxpayers Alliance. And the fantastic news is that John is here. He is a real person, and I don't have any technical problems until, of course, he says a word, and I can't hear him because his mic doesn't work. But anyway, John, hello.
Hello. Good. Thank you for having me.
Yes, your microphone works, and you are here. Woo! Relax. John, tell me, what is the story here, please?
Well, I think lots of people hear different examples of wasted money when it comes to the foreign aid budget. You know, the classic ones, the Ethiopian Spice Girls and all of these kind of things. But actually, part of the process is the problem as well. So what you have is that there are rules of how we distribute international aid money. So a certain country must have a gross national income per head of below around $12,200 a year. But what that actually means is that that's an average across a whole country. But what actually ends up happening is in some countries such as Mexico, Malaysia and China, there are regions within those countries that are much better off than many regions in our own country. And some money, for instance, in Campeche in Mexico has been going to help establish cashless payment systems. Now,
That's a noble aim.
Well, perhaps it is. Perhaps it is. But
I love technology.
Yeah, but Campeche is a better off region than 99 regions within the UK. So you're talking about Mid-Kent, Croydon, East Merseyside. So should UK taxpayers' money be going to a relatively well-off region of a developed country for something that you'd argue that the Mexican government should be looking at themselves? Indeed.
Now, when it comes to foreign aid, I do believe, actually, that we should be helping poorer nations. I think if you can afford to do that, that's a good thing to do. I also support the reduction in foreign aid that's been talked about very recently, because I do believe that charity begins at home. But one of the problems, John, I've always had with foreign aid is this enshrinement in law to meet this spend target. Because it was 0.7 of GNI, it's now 0.5 at the moment temporarily. But in my business experience, when you have, like if you set someone a task, a department, say, right, you must spend this amount of money, so 0.7, 0.5% GNI, what then happens is people desperately run around trying to find ways and things to spend this money on because they have to meet this target of expenditure. So for me, this is where you then get wasted money. And surely it would be better, rather than setting a target that you must meet, why aren't we just saying, right, OK, so we're going to cap the money that we're going to spend to this, and then we're going to make sure that what we do is spend it effectively. So you're not forcing people, you don't have to, you're not going to be measured by you've spent this amount of money. That is just a cap, if you like. So this is, we won't do any more than this, but what we do spend will be effective and efficient.
Yeah, it's all the wrong incentives. And that happens too often across the public sector, that because they're spending other people's money, you know, they have set budgets each year and they make sure that they meet those budgets in order to get the same amount of money the next year. What you could look at something like rewarding civil servants who are able to find savings in the budget.
Whoa, steady on there, my friend.
Wow.
Civil servants awarded for finding savings. That would be the day. I would love to see that to happen. I'd love that. Do you think it'd ever happen in the public sector?
Well, you know, these are the kinds of ideas that we should be coming up with and pushing, because, you know, it's easy to spend somebody else's money.
Indeed.
And it's, you know, that's why the incentives are very different with the private and public sector. So we need to encourage them to actually think about how they can save money, while not necessarily, ending projects. You know, you can just do more for less. And I think that kind of mindset in the public sector, particularly with the overseas aid budget, would be very welcome. But as you say, you know, having this 0.7% target sets all the wrong incentives. It just means that they find ways to shovel money out the door. And, you know, of course, that means wasteful spending.
Yeah, and it's not the same thing, but similar concepts. It's kind of like when you see the councils and things, and you start getting to budget end, and you see all of these roadworks or projects suddenly popping up because people know if you don't spend this money, you lose it from your next quarter or your next year's budget. What about people will criticise some of the things that's been said here, and they'll say, well, hang on a second, you know, foreign aid, it shouldn't be reduced. It should be going out. We should be, in fact, some people would argue we should probably even be spending more. And they'll talk about things like soft power and all this and that. What's you say to that?
Well, we're already a very generous nation. If you were to cut our international aid budget even more than we have, you would find that we're still more generous than the likes of Japan, New Zealand, Australia on a per head basis. So, you know, this sort of political class and lots of the media, they paint it as, you know, absolutely outrageous that you could even possibly dream of trying to find savings in the aid budget or to reprioritise some of the spending. But actually, they're the ones that are out of step with most of the public on this. The public can see that some money's being wasted and they want something done about it. So they're the ones who really should be making the case, as opposed to, you know, groups like ours and you know, people like yourself, Michelle, struggling to find space to make that case to politicians because they've already made up their mind.
Yeah, indeed. And, you know, I would like the focus to be more on the outcomes. You know, let's focus on what I would call almost like the KPIs. So look at what's working, what are the successful outcomes that we are achieving with this money. But anyway, John, you are going to be joining me hopefully regularly, aren't you? I want you to help us shine a light on where money is being wasted, because I think too many times, you know, you'll see a story. I remember the COVID, you know, the press room, and millions of pounds were spent on that set. You remember that set?
Yeah.
And then what's happened to it? What happened to that set? Because I thought they were spending all of that money. They were going to be getting more use.
And it doesn't look like it was worth all of that money either, you know, just aesthetically speaking. You know, the public sector kind of reminds me of weddings, right? When you've got a wedding on, you know, instant 20% markup on your price. It's the same with the public sector. I think that contractors and private sector providers can sort of see them coming and budgets go up and there's no real sort of benchmarking process at all. You know, learning good lessons. You see it with council by council or NHS trust by NHS trust. They don't learn from one another. Sometimes they do very good things and they do save money and they become more efficient. But that's not shared across the rest of the public sector, and a lot more benchmarking would be very, very helpful as well.
Yeah, knowledge sharing, benchmarking, and often more centralised procurement. Because obviously volume, scale, the more you're ordering of something, the cheaper you should theoretically. And I'm kind of rowing back here because I've seen some of the debacle of the PPE procurement and what that's looked like. But John, I appreciate your time. I'm looking forward to conversations with you as the weeks roll on.